This story, this is probably the hardest thing I'll ever tell you. Most days I still can't figure out if I'm living in a beautiful dream or a full blown nightmare. It all started 5 years ago, the day I lost my daughter, Lila. Lila was my heart, a painter, a firecracker, always arguing about history and music. When she died in that car accident, my world didn't just stop, it was ripped apart. I had my son, Jake, to live for, but a part of me, the main part, went with her. We spent 5 years living in a sort of quiet, gray grief. Every birthday, every holiday, the silence was deafening. Then, 3 months ago, Jake called me. He sounded nervous, really nervous. And Jake, he's usually the calmest kid I know. He said, "Mom, I'm bringing someone home for dinner tonight." My new girlfriend, Anna, I was happy for him, thrilled even. We needed some new, good energy in the house. I spent the whole afternoon cleaning, cooking Lila's favorite lasagna. It was comfort food, I guess. I was standing by the stove when the front door opened. Jake walked in first, smiling, his hand resting on the small of her back. He looked right at me, and his smile, it died on his face. He'd seen the instant shock in my eyes. The girl, Anna, stepped out from behind him, and my entire body went cold. Every single muscle in my body locked up. I didn't just see a young girl. I saw my daughter. I saw Lila. She looked just like her, and I mean exactly like her. You might be thinking, oh, maybe they just had the same haircut. Number. This wasn't a resemblance. This was a mirror. The same shade of hazel eyes, the ones that always look slightly gold in the sun. The same exact way her dark, wavy hair fell just past her shoulders. Even the small, barely noticeable dimple on her right cheek when she smiled shyly. It was Lila at 18. Except my Lila had been gone for 5 years. Jake coughed. "Mom, this is Anna." I managed to mumble a greeting, my voice sounding distant and strained, like I was speaking from the bottom of a well. Anna was polite. She was sweet. She even talked about how much she loved the smell of the lasagna, which was something Lila always said. Small thing, right? But to me, in that moment, it felt like a tiny electric current had run through my soul. We sat down for dinner. The whole meal was agonizing. Every time Anna laughed, every time she pushed a stray strand of hair behind her ear, it was a ghost from my past sitting across the table. I kept looking at Jake. He was talking a mile a minute, trying to fill the silence, trying to distract me. He was too animated. It was clearly fake. He was hiding something. "So, Anna," I asked, forcing a casual tone. "How did you two meet?" Anna answered easily. "They met at the university library. Jake was struggling with a history paper, and she offered to help. She was a history major. Lila was obsessed with history. The coincidences kept piling up. She mentioned her favorite band, the Fading Stars, Lila's favorite band. She talked about a trip to the coast when she was a kid, describing a small, hidden lighthouse in a tiny town. A town our family had only visited once, 7 years ago, for a single private weekend. How could Anna know about that lighthouse? I tried to dismiss it all. It had to be grief playing tricks on me, a weird, cosmic roll of the dice. But then came the moment that made my blood run truly cold. Anna was gesturing while telling a story, her hand out over the table, and there it was, on the inside of her left wrist. Lila had a birthmark there. Not a big one, not a colorful one, just a tiny, faint, crescent-shaped smudge of skin. It was unique. No one ever noticed it unless she pointed it out. She used to call it her moon scar, and Anna had it. The exact same mark, in the exact same spot. I couldn't breathe. I must have stared at her wrist for a full minute, frozen. Jake's foot kicked mine hard under the table. That was his signal. "Stop looking." "Are you okay, Mrs. Essen?" Anna asked, her voice filled with gentle concern. I stood up. I I think I just need some air. I practically ran out of the room, leaving my son and his almost daughter clone alone at the dinner table. That night I didn't sleep. I replayed the whole evening. It was too much for coincidence. The face, the eyes, the band, the lighthouse, the moon scar. It felt intentional. It felt arranged. And the only person who could have arranged it was Jake. The next morning, I went to Jake's room. He was sitting at his desk, pretending to study. The first thing I noticed was a framed photo of Lila he kept facing down on his shelf. He never kept it face down. I walked in, and I didn't even say good morning. I just pointed at the floor and said, Jake, sit. Tell me everything. He tried to play dumb, but I wasn't having it. I told him about the birthmark, about the lighthouse. I told him he was insulting my intelligence, making me question my sanity. He finally broke. He didn't look at me. He just stared at his hands. He admitted that the resemblance was why he started talking to her in the first place. He saw her across the library, and he thought he was hallucinating. He said he spent weeks following her, watching her, learning about her. He said he was careful. He said he kept telling himself it was just a crazy accident. But when he heard her humming a tune, a specific French lullaby I only ever sang to Lila, he knew. He knew this was more than a coincidence. Jake confessed he'd done some searching. He went online looking at medical forums, genetics groups, old newspaper archives. He was desperate. He couldn't just have his sister's ghost walk into his life without an explanation. What he found was vague, confusing, and terrifying. He found mentions of a small, experimental program from a university medical group 5 or 6 years ago, a program dealing with rare, complex genetic markers in young adults. Lila had been briefly involved, doing a basic cheek swab for a high school science project that partnered with the university. Jake said he found a small, unmarked letter tucked into Lila's old high school yearbook. The letter was from the university research team. It thanked Lila for her participation, and then there was a strange paragraph about storage of cellular material for future study and an option to retract consent at any time. I remembered that project. Lila had rushed through it. I'd signed the consent form without really reading the fine print. Who reads the fine print on a high school science project? I signed something allowing them to take a cheek swab and keep it. I never imagined. Jake told me he'd taken the biggest risk of his life. He'd signed Anna up for one of those online genealogy kits. He used a fake email address and a small sample of her hair he'd picked up from the floor when she'd visited his apartment the week before. The results came back a few weeks later, and they were impossible. Anna's DNA profile showed a near perfect match to our family, but it couldn't be explained by any known relationship. Not a sister, not a niece, not a cousin. It was closer. Much, much closer. Jake looked up from his hands, his eyes finally meeting mine. He said, Mom, I think, I think Anna is a copy. A copy. The word hung in the air like a piece of glass. It's a word you only hear in bad science fiction movies, not your quiet suburban kitchen. But the evidence was overwhelming, the looks, the birthmark, the shared childhood tune. I took the research from Jake, the printouts, the blurry forum posts, the letter. I spent the next 2 weeks just reading. It turns out that around the time Lila gave that sample, there were whispers in the medical community about a technique called somatic cell transfer. It's incredibly complicated, but the simple version is this: taking genetic information from a cell and using it to create a new, almost identical copy. The research Jake found suggested that this specific university group funded by some anonymous private donors, was quietly trying to apply this technique to create viable genetic material only for the purpose of studying rare disease resistance. They were looking for the perfect genetic resistance. The goal, according to the documents, was never a full human. It was just tissue or cell lines. But what if they went too far? What if they created something they couldn't control? I started to trace Anna's background, her adoption. She was adopted a few years after Lila gave her sample. Her adoption papers were sealed, but I hired a private investigator, telling him I was just tracking down a long lost family friend. The investigator came back with one file that chilled me to the bone. Anna's birth mother was listed as Jane Doe, affiliated with the University Research Clinic. Her birth certificate had a number instead of a name. Her adoption agency was a small, obscure firm that shut down almost immediately after her adoption was finalized. Anna was born exactly 9 months after the date on the university's storage of cellular material letter. It all clicked. They took Lila's genetic material, they used it, and they created Anna, a perfect copy. Maybe not a clone in the strict sense, but genetically she was Lila. And I had been shaking hands with my daughter's biological copy, who was now dating my son. My son. Jake knew the risk of the DNA test. He knew the possibilities. He was heartbroken by Lila's death. He wasn't trying to date his sister. He was trying to bring her back. He saw Anna, this perfect, living, breathing echo of his dead sister, and he pursued her. Not as a girlfriend, but as a replacement, a second chance. He wanted to fill the Lila-shaped hole in our lives with the only person who could possibly fit. And now I had the truth, a secret that would shatter two innocent lives, Anna's and Jake's, and potentially expose a secret, illegal medical program. What was I supposed to do with this information? I watched them for another month. They were sweet together. Jake was happier than I'd seen him in 5 years. Anna was kind, genuine, and clearly falling for him. I became an actress in my own life, smiling politely, watching my son hold the hand of a girl who, by all rights, was the daughter I buried. I planned to tell Jake everything. I was going to sit him down, show him the papers, and force him to end things for Anna's own good. But I kept postponing it. I was weak. A part of me, a selfish, grieving mother's part, loved seeing Lila again. I was cleaning out Lila's old bedroom, getting ready to maybe finally turn it into a guest room, when I found something else. Tucked away under her mattress was a small wooden box. Inside was a tiny gold locket. Lila hated jewelry. She never wore it. But the locket was open, and inside, etched into the metal, was a name I didn't recognize. Aurora. I was confused. Who was Aurora? I'd never heard Lila mention that name. A friend? A character from a book? It didn't fit with anything I knew about my daughter. A few days later, Anna came over. She and Jake were studying in the living room. Jake had gone out to grab a pizza. I walked in, and I just stood there, watching her. I decided that this was it. I had to tell her. I couldn't let her go any further with Jake. I took a deep breath. Anna, I started, my voice shaking. Can we talk for a minute? There's something I need to tell you about your past. And about Lila. She looked up from her book, her hazel eyes completely calm. Oh, Mrs. S., is this about the dream? I froze again. The dream? She closed her book, setting it aside. Yes, the one I keep having. It's silly, I know, but sometimes when I'm studying or just quiet, I have this memory that I know isn't mine. What kind of memory, Anna? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. All the scientific explanations, the papers, the research, they suddenly felt flimsy.
She smiled, a tiny, sad, genuine smile that was all Lila. It's of a locket, a gold one. I'm holding it, and I'm hiding it under a mattress, and I'm whispering a name to it. The name is Aurora. My entire world spun. I felt like the floor was tilting. I stumbled back to the kitchen counter, grabbing it to steady myself. The locket was a secret. Only Lila knew about it, and she certainly never mentioned the name Aurora to me or Jake.
I managed to ask Anna, "Who is Aurora?" She just shrugged, her expression confused. "I don't know. Mrs. S. It's just the name I whisper in the dream. It's like a secret word, I guess. Maybe I just made it up." But I knew she hadn't. I pulled the locket out of my pocket, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I placed it on the table between us. Anna's eyes went wide, not surprised, not shocked, but with a deep, immediate recognition. The kind of recognition you have when you see a place you used to live. She reached out, picked up the locket, and then she did the unthinkable. She pressed a hidden clasp I never even knew existed on the side of the locket. It opened completely, and inside there wasn't a photo or a name. There was a tiny, micro written slip of paper. She unfolded it. Her eyes scanned the words, and she looked up at me, the ghost of my daughter staring right through me, and she said one final thing that proved everything I knew was a lie and everything Jake did was a mistake. "Mrs. S," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It says, tell no one about Aurora. It's our second chance. I still don't know what Aurora is, but I do know this. Anna isn't just a copy of Lila. She has her memories. She has her secrets. And my son is dating a girl who is both his sister's shadow and something much, much darker. I have to tell him. But I don't know if he'll ever believe me or if he'll even want to stop.